Cool.
There we go. What's up, A to Z Sports here live on a Friday. We're going to have a good show today. Easton and Sam are back in Nashville after spending the majority of the week in Mobile, Alabama, watching the Senior Bowl practices and then making the late drive last night after everything wrapped up back to Nashville to talk through the risers and the fallers for the Titans' perspective of this NFL draft at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. We're going to talk through all of it, risers and fallers, including the quarterback position. And Easton, you really have four positions we're going to focus on a lot of with these risers and fallers when it looks at the Titans draft. We're going to go through that. We're also going to ask you guys about something that Sam and I had a kind of a plan to talk about yesterday, but didn't have time to get to it as you guys had early morning practice this week. But talk about the second round pick. We spent a lot of time already. It is the last day of January. We spent the majority of the month talking about the number 1 overall pick, but that 35 overall pick in the second round is pretty valuable as well, as the Titans have a lot of power in this draft. So Easton, welcome back to Nashville. Does the state of Tennessee smell better than the state of Alabama?
Yes, low bar, but it does. Back in the great state of Tennessee. What's up, party people? Excited to be back this morning with you all and excited to get into some rises and fallers from the Senior Bowl today. Got some names that I think we can do a little baseline introduction, get some names on your radar, some folks that I think are going to be a hot topic for the next couple of months as the Titans figure out what they're going to do with this all-important draft. Before we dive into all of it, though, we need you to like the show. So help us out on YouTube, on Facebook. Hit that like button for us. Help us out. Easiest way that you can support the show. It is free. Hit that thumbs up for us. And then jump in the comments like Robbie and Johnny, Hill and Till, Stephen, Katie, Diane, John, Karen, Daniel, and others. See some familiar faces in there. Bork, hello, good morning. Daniel, hello, good morning. Happy to have you all here with us and talk about some prospects. It's an exciting time of year, one of my favorite times of year. We get to dive into the next best and brightest Tennessee Titans that I think we may have identified a couple down there in Mobile.
All right, let's do it officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Easton Freeze, one of our Titans reporters for A to Z Sports.com, and we're Nashville's on-demand sports network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. Hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. Got to thank our sponsors. They make it happen for us, and they help out all of you. Wilson County Hyundai, make them a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon, online, wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Farm Bureau Health Plans, get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans by using our link, fbhp.com/ATOZ. TDOT, keeping Tennessee beautiful, and you can help out by going to their campaign, NobodyTrashesTennessee.com, and our friends at Bart Durham Injury Law. A crash can change your life forever, but help is just a click away at BartDurham.com. Speaking of Bart Durham Injury Law, shout out to them. A round of applause, everybody in the chat. A round of applause. Thank you to the Bart Durham Injury Law for sending Easton and Sam to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama the last few days. Shout out to them because that was our sponsor of all of our great Senior Bowl coverage, whether it was here on the show, you guys at practice, on social media, on the website, lots of different things to come because the Bart Durham Injury Law is also going to be a great sponsor of all of our draft coverage throughout this draft process. And so they can always help you out with whatever it comes to an accident with your automobile, whether it's a big truck wreck, semis, or just any car accident. They've been serving Tennesseans and Nashvillians since 1975 when they opened their doors for business. And Bart Durham, the great legendary Nashvillian Bart Durham, passed away last year, but his son, Blair Durham, a Marine vet, also a legendary Nashvillian, is running the show and doing phenomenal things behind the scenes in our community, as well as helping anybody out who needs them for any type of accident. You deserve to be paid for what you go through, and you can check them out online at bartdurham.com. Easton, I will let you tease something that you're going to have coming up later today, because last week it was the unofficial launch of what we're going to be doing with Bart Durham, which is the draft interview series. We just made the first one, the hour-and-a-half long Brian Callahan interview. But weekly, now through the NFL draft. You will have a weekly NFL draft interview series going out, talking to NFL draft experts around the world, around the country, about the Titans and beyond. And you've got one coming up later today.
Yeah, got a fun interview that I did with my friend Marcus Whitman down in Mobile. If you don't know who Marcus is, he is he's a leading voice on NFL YouTube. He does really fantastic work. He's one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to the NFL draft, evaluating NFL teams. He's one of the leading voices of that community. If you are a big fan of Brett Coleman or James Foster or people like that, this is going to be an interesting interview for you. And he has done a lot of work already on the quarterbacks at the top of the draft. And so he and I sat down in the middle of Senior Bowl practice, threw a camera up in the bleachers, leaned back, watched the football happening on the field, and just kind of talked about his opinion on the quarterbacks. And I think it is a valuable thing to listen to, because he has a perspective on this that has not been shared by anybody on the A to Z Sports YouTube channel. Okay. It is kind of a devil's advocate stance on the Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward.
Oh my gosh.
Terrible.
What did you just do?
Cam Ward discussion, a devil's advocate argument for Cam Ward is what I'm trying to get at here. And he is very, it's right, hating on Dart for no reason. That's on me. Sorry about that. Not a bad guy by any means. Just not my favorite quarterback in this class, but I am.
We're about to talk about Jackson Dart. We're going to talk about him.
Jackson Dart. Well, yeah, we'll get to that. But Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, those are the guys that we talked about, and he presented an argument for why maybe we are underrating Cam Ward, and gives a very intelligent reason why. So definitely check that out. That is my interview with Marcus Whitman later today. If you don't know him, you're going to love him. And it'll be on YouTube, I don't know, sometime around midday. Turn on notifications and you'll see it.
Midday. Yeah. We're going to figure that out, but I'm excited for that as well. So Easton will be doing that weekly. Shout out to Bart Durham Injury Law as well for being the great sponsor of that. And the Combine, Easton, is just 3.5 weeks away?
Less than a month.
Oh my gosh. You guys will be back on the road sharing a car trip together again. You and
part of the reason we came home early last night is we're about to do this again. Might as well go home.
Yep. All right. So let's get into it. Risers and fallers of the Senior Bowl players. So we're going to focus on 4 position groups today. We'll start with quarterbacks, and we're going to go through edge rushers, wide receivers, offensive line, which Sam and I kind of unofficially gained the data on. Those 4 position groups are the 4 biggest needs on this Titans roster for the draft, in whatever order you want to put them on. But those 4, quarterback, edge, wide receiver, and O-line, are the 4 biggest needs for this roster. Do you agree?
Repeat those 4.
The 4 biggest needs in the draft for this team, in no particular order: quarterback, edge, wide receiver, O-line. Do you disagree?
Yeah, that's not true.
Oh,
you got 3 of them right. The first 3 are correct. And one of these positions, people think it is a need more than it actually is, because they are underrating a couple of other positions that are dire needs. I have been saying.
Do you want to save that for yourself, or do you want to go ahead and air that out
now? Maybe we'll save why a little bit later.
Okay.
But I mean, the reality, I think, feel very strongly that, and I've been saying this since September, that this team is a 5-alarm fire at quarterback, edge, and right tackle in particular, right? So we're on the same page. Those are the number 1, 2, and 3 most important positions.
You're booting wide receiver.
Wide receiver is a position of need. I'm not saying it's not a position of need. I'm saying it's not the 4th most important, biggest need. It is 6th on the list.
Wow.
They need a strong linebacker and a strong safety more than they need not a literal strong safety, a good safety a good linebacker more than they need a receiver. And that is less to do with their need at receiver, because they really do need another good receiver. But their defense does not work without better linebacker and safety play. We saw it play out last year. If you've been listening to the show, I laid out the entire argument for why this defense was never going to work, except for Ernest Jones and Quandre Diggs being amazing, underrated, magical fixers for the defense for the first half of the year. They both disappeared. And then what happened? The Titans defense became unworkable.
Man, so many opinions. Maven, wide receivers 5th for me. Andre's freaking out 6th. Cap says the Titans have no wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 3, saying they only have a wide receiver 2, which would be Calvin Ridley. And so
wide receiver is a big need. It's just not as big as linebacker and safety.
I don't want you to defend yourself. I just want to read some of these comments.
Okay.
To you. Wide receiver is a luxury at this point. Totally agree with Easton.
I don't know about luxury.
Chris Frazier just says need 3 pass rushers. You're probably not wrong.
Let's start with 1. Can we find 1 first? That'd be nice.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So Vanessa says say the order again. What's your order?
I'm gonna save. Let's talk about the order later when we talk about the second pick because I find that interesting. But one through 3. We know what number 1 is, right? Number 1 is quarterback.
Yes.
2 and 3 we'll talk about later between edge and tackle. So it goes quarterback, edge or tackle, 2, 3. 4, 5 is linebacker, safety. We can talk about that at some point in the future. 6 is wide receiver, in my opinion.
Okay, risers and fallers. Let's start with the Titans' number 1 need in the draft overall is quarterback. Now, the quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl are not the quarterbacks that the Titans would be picking number 1 overall. But the biggest name, okay? I mean, look, obviously the quarterbacks, are you just throwing all the quarterbacks into the fallers category? Because
that were there. Yes.
Jackson Dart, who is on the graphic under me, is probably the highest level prospect at the quarterback position that was at the Senior Bowl. That is a fact, right?
Yep. Highest profile guy that was there.
Jalen Milroe is there. He's got tiny hands. He can't throw the ball. The Louisville
Milroe had a horrible week. It was so bad. Every time I looked up, he was putting the ball on the ground somehow in a non-contact practice.
Crazy. How do you pronounce the Louisville's quarterback name? Because I've heard it like 8 times, 8 different ways.
It looks like Shaw, but it's Shuff.
Shuff?
Or no, wait, it's Shuck. Shuck.
Okay, Shuck, like corn.
Yeah, I heard it said a million different ways. Shuck the corn. I'm almost positive it is Tyler.
Yes, that
Shuck.
sounds correct. Tyler Shuck. Is he a riser within the group?
Technically, yes.
Because that's more of like he might have stayed steady and everybody else fell below him.
Yes.
Okay. And I just laughed. I just laughed at this. American Top saying Milroe's a T-Rex.
Well, the reason I throw up pistol grips, Milroe, the wide receiver, is because I was talking to some people. Every year, we have like some guy where we're like, they really should change positions. Like this tight end that should be a receiver, or a receiver that should be a tight end, or a quarterback that should be a running back. The Milroe situation this year, number 1, there's no person in this draft class that needed more badly to go back to school than Jalen Milroe. I have no idea why he came out. No idea. Horrible decision. I understand that I guess his motivator that I'm hearing is because Alabama did not want him back. That's fine. I know there are many, many schools that would have gladly.
Texas didn't want Quinn Ewers back either, but here he is going in the draft.
Right. But, Georgia didn't want Carson Beck back. He went to Miami and got $1 bajillion. He could have gone and made good money somewhere.
Let me just say this on this topic. So Carson Beck is getting reportedly $4 million in 1 year, for 1 year to go to Miami. That would be, I looked this up. Now there's some nuance to this, but Carson Beck would be the 18th highest paid quarterback in the NFL on base salary.
Yeah. Milroe should have gone back to get that or close to that.
Or anything.
A fourth of that.
If Milroe is a third, like Will Levis, the 33rd pick overall, is getting $9 million total over 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about a high second round pick getting $9 million over 4. What is Milroe going to get in the 60s, 70s, whatever round he goes in?
Sixth round.
I mean, if the kid, crap, the quarterback from Wazoo, Washington State, that went to Oklahoma
recently or in the past?
The transfer. Washington State quarterback transferred to Oklahoma.
You're asking the wrong guy, I'm afraid.
Dang it, he's really good.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
He's now the Oklahoma quarterback.
Yes. He got $3 million to go from Washington State to Oklahoma. It's driving me insane because it's on the tip of my tongue. It's like near something near. Mateer. Yes, John Mateer. John Mateer went from He got $3 million to go to Oklahoma. John Mateer. I couldn't remember his name. Right. And then he got $3 million. So, Jalen Milroe should have stayed in college, and so should Quinn Ewers. But anyway, so Jackson Dart, also a faller in this.
Oh, hang on. Sorry. What I was saying, though, just quickly on Milroe, is that he is the ultimate should play different position, but I'm serious this time guy. Like every year, it's like, well, this guy should play a different position. And they never do. With Milroe, it's like he should genuinely be starting to learn a different position. And I'm dead serious. Like he can't play quarterback. He can't do it. He stinks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's pretty evident to me. He's a freak athlete. He's just not a quarterback. And I think he can make a lot of money in the NFL if he plays something else.
That's enough on Milroe. Anyways.
So Jackson Dart, because I saw it was going around yesterday, Todd McShay had a comment about Jackson Dart saying that he is from some scouts are thinking that Jackson Dart could be the second quarterback in this class. What was the, lick your finger and stick it out and feel the wind direction? What did you think or hear or feel on Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss from the quarterback scouting perspective at the Senior Bowl?
Not good things. I heard thumbs down things on Jackson Dart. I mean, so Dart is probably the most divisive quarterback in the class at this point, because there are a group of people and scouts and serious people who think Travis May, who think that Jackson Dart is the man. And obviously I'm not letting people that have watched his tape are not going to let his Senior Bowl performance or lack thereof change their opinion of him too much. Mm-hmm. But he really struggled this week to run a shell of an NFL defense or an NFL offense at the Senior Bowl. Really struggled. You saw some flashes at times, but I don't know, man. I heard just as many people on the field, the whisperings and the talkings that I'm doing to coaches and scouts and agents. I heard just as much Jackson Dart hate as I heard Jackson Dart love. In fact, I personally heard more not ridicule, but disdain for the idea of Jackson Dart than I heard positivity. Now, guys like McShay, clearly he's not making it up. He's hearing these things that people like Jackson Dart. And I have not yet watched the full tape on Dart. So I went into this week. I told Travis, I said, I'm Dart curious this week. I'm going to feel it out. Travis May here at A to Z.
College football managing editor and NFL draft managing editor for the website.
Right. I told it because he's the Dart guy around here.
Correct.
And I said, I'm Dart curious. I'm going to let this week kind of guide my introduction to Dart and see where it goes. And it was a bad first impression. Didn't like it at all. I'm going to go and do his tape with an open mind, but I don't know. I don't know about all that. And I know that there are some NFL coaches and agents and people that actually make decisions that kind of echoed that sentiment where they're like, nah, not about it. Not about it. He reminds me a lot of Will, by the way. Levis, that is. He just as a person, not necessarily as a player.
Because he's
they are
kid.
No, well, yes. I mean, they physically look similar. Big, muscly, white guy, blonde kid. Love, the crazy eye black. More importantly, wear their emotions on their sleeves. Really intense guy. And then his play style is relatively similar. He's got fine mobility. Throw the ball downfield. So I'm leaning not for the Titans, but we will see. I'll withhold ultimate judgment until I watch. But I did not leave super stoked about the Ole Miss kid.
Another similarity to Jackson Dart and Will Levis. Bork brought it up. Dart is good until you slightly turn up the pressure.
Who else do we know that's like that?
No, that's what I said. Will Levis. He is the quarterback nervous system, not great. And that's going to be a big focus. We're going to come back to that comment from Brian Callahan to you. Yes, quarterback nervous system. Oh, because what I saw from Jackson Dart, they smacked Georgia at home. Mm-hmm. But that was not a high pressure game. It was such a dominant performance by Ole Miss on both sides of the ball from the very jump that it did not matter. But in the back and forth game at Florida, when Ole Miss had its college football playoff life on the line, Jackson Dart was like Kyler Murray sized. He was tiny. And he just, I honestly, watching that game, as good as it was for Tennessee that Ole Miss lost to Florida in that situation, I personally empathized and felt bad for Jackson Dart on the sideline as they were showing him with tears welling up in his eyes after his like third interception of the fourth quarter to sink Ole Miss's season. I was like, I do feel bad for the guy, but I'm not surprised because that is what
A feeling that we felt a lot this year for Will.
Yes.
It
So
it feels like
Jackson
it feels
Dart.
like a movie we've seen before, you know?
So I'm going to make a statement, and you can tell me if you are true or false on this statement based
Okay.
on your week at the Senior Bowl.
Okay.
We should completely put to bed any potential thought of the Titans drafting Jackson Dart at all in this draft. True or false? We should completely put to bed any thought of the Titans drafting Jackson Dart at all in this draft. I'm talking about 1, trade back to 6, 35, trade up from 35 to 28, whatever. We should put to bed that Jackson Dart will ever be drafted by the Tennessee Titans. True or false?
True. Based on what I heard while I was there, based on my experience gathering information, we should put to bed the idea that the Titans are interested in Jackson Dart.
Okay. So Bork says true. Hashtag QJ says false. Curtis says, thank you, Austin. Bossman says false. Johnny says true. Eric, very true.
Now, to be clear,
100%.
I'm not putting to bed the idea that Dart is like I'm not saying definitively bad prospect because I've not watched
No,
him
we're talking
yet.
about the Titans.
We're saying for the Titans, drafting him anywhere, we're putting that to bed.
Okay. Andre, riot and boycott. Steven, false. If the Titans pass on Sanders or Ward. Scott says they won't draft Dart 100%. So we're getting more truths. And Vanessa asked, why is Dart even being discussed? Because we're going through risers and fallers of the Senior Bowl, and we started with the Titans' number one need, and that is the quarterback position. Okay, Easton, let's go ahead and flip to the next position group on risers and fallers here from the Senior Bowl. And this, I think, is interesting because this is a position of need that could be sought after by the Titans in the first round or the second round of the draft. We'll get to that here in a second. But first, the Bone and Joint Institute is where you should turn for any injury that you have in life. Maybe it's playing some intramural rec sports around town. Maybe it's your son or daughter. Hopefully not. But youth sports injuries also happen, and the Bone and Joint Institute can be there for your son or daughter if and when it does. Because injuries happen in life and in sports just like they do in football. And you have to have the people, the team you can trust to fall back on, whether it's some type of injury out there, slip and fall, whatever it might be. But the Bone and Joint Institute can take care of you. They have the experts, the resources, and the support staff as well. boneandjointtn.org. And Franklin, check them out online, boneandjointtn.org.
We're also brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Sign up today using our bonus code ATOZ Sports to get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Had an aneurysm there for a moment. There's nothing better than winning over at BetMGM. Get that app, BetMGM, in the palm of your hand. Makes it so easy to bet on all of the sporting events. Big Super Bowl coming up. A lot of college basketball coming up. Was listening to college basketball with Sam on the way home last night on Illinois heartbreaker in overtime to Nebraska. He was in hell, but it was a great game, the kind of thing that got me excited for March Madness and betting on some college hoops coming up. So we want to do that over at BetMGM. Enjoy the best parlay selection options, boosted odds specials, daily promotions, so much more. Download that app today. Use our bonus code ATOZ Sports for BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas.
All right, Easton, the edge position. Risers and fallers for the edge position at the Senior Bowl. Who were some guys that stood out as risers here?
Yeah, we're going to focus on, we just did mostly fallers for the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Want to focus more on some risers for the edge. I have a couple of fallers for edge, but some guys that stood out. And Tristan in the comments says, Jack Sawyer, the hero, Captain Jack. He was not there. I love that. If people don't, you know what I'm referencing, right? The call by who's the
Ohio State guy?
No, who's the broadcaster that
Sean McDonough?
No. people in the comments, help me out. Who's the
Chris
broadcaster?
Fowler?
The one that had that awesome call in the Michigan Ohio State game when Jack Sawyer intercepted Michigan in the end zone.
Oh,
And he goes into his head voice. He's like, Jack Sawyer, the hero.
Oh,
Gus
it's
Johnson. And sorry, it's my favorite clip. If you haven't seen it, go look up Gus Johnson, Jack Sawyer. It's so good. Jack Sawyer was not there because there were no Ohio State guys there, which was a bummer. And the way that the college football season is like going so long, it's kind of making it hard for these Senior Bowl and Shrine Game, All-Star games to get some of those guys. But he's somebody we're going to talk about a lot. I know that people are excited to talk about him. He is going to be in that range, I think, for the Titans in the second round, but he's not there. So we're going to talk about him later. The guys that were there were two really that stood out to me on the week, and that was Mike Green, who we all expected to stand out. Mike Green, edge out of Marshall, and Shamar Stewart, edge out of Texas A&M. Those were the two headline guys for me. Naturally, they were the top two on the consensus board guys there. Shamar Stewart, I think, currently at 24 overall on the consensus mock draft board, and Mike Green not far behind at 31 overall. So these are guys that are fringe first round, back of first round guys. But the thing about this edge group this year, Austin, is that it's kind of a roadblock at the top of the draft. There are so many options. They're not all different flavors of guys. So not every team's going to be in on all of them. There's going to be, I think, a lot of varying opinions. And if I just go down the edge position on the consensus mock board right now, you've got Abdul Carter at 4. And then after 4, the positions are 10, 13, 16, 18, 23, 29, 38, 42, 43, 46. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys at edge expected to go after Abdul Carter in the top 5 in the next 40-ish picks. And so somebody's going to fall. And that's, Micah Williams and James Pierce. So this is guys of that ilk are expected to go in the first round. But you get into Nick Scorton out of A&M, Shamar Stewart out of A&M, Mike Green out of Marshall, Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. These are the Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, who was also there, who did catch my eye a couple times. Jared Ivey out of Ole Miss is somebody that a name that I heard a couple times. Those guys, there's going to be a contingent of them that are available at 35 for the Titans in the second round. And so those guys that stood out to me were Shamar Stewart and Mike Green. A couple of notes on both of those guys just to kind of familiarize yourself with them. Mike Green, there was some concern going into the week that his numbers, his measurements were going to be concerning. And it's because there was the preseason. So before last year's football season, there was a scout measurement that went out that people thought was his current measurement. And it had him at like 232 pounds. And we're like, ooh, you can't do that. He measured again, once we got that clarified, at 251. So we're good on that front. He's not the biggest edge in the world, but that's not the way that he wins. And we're going to play a clip here, Austin. Let's play the clip of him absolutely bulldozing a tackle that we're going to talk about. A good player. This is not some scrub he's running over here. This is a guy we're going to talk about here in just a minute out of Oregon, a big name tackle, Josh Conerly. Well, I mean, look at that. Ridiculous. Is he the biggest guy in the world? No, but he's got to be, I think Conerly probably has 50 pounds on him, and he just absolutely bulldozes him. He's got that dog. He's got really high energy.
Like mean, just mean.
Yeah, he's just a mean player.
Which is exactly what you're looking for, because that is what I feel like the Titans have not had in their edge rushing group in a while, is the willingness to strain that extra bit to get what you need to get. Like, doesn't it feel like you're watching Titans games and the opposing offensive line rarely gets called for holds unless it's Jeffrey Simmons, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's because like Arden Key, Harold Landry, those guys aren't like straining through the hold that is happening to make the ref have to call it. Like Mike Green, like this makes me feel like somebody, like the twitchiness, the aggressiveness, the meanness that he's playing with, like that guy is feels like he is going to strain to the nth of every play. Like he is going to go through the whole whistle thing, right? That cliche. He feels like somebody that you would like to have for sure.
And Titans Kyle brings up Conerly listed at 315. So he's got basically 70, 75 pounds on Mike Green. Did not matter in this clip. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Conerly is a good tackle prospect who the Titans may very well take at 35 if he's even still there. this was just a big win rep for a really awesome edge player.
So can I pause on this, because I've seen this rep from many angles, and I think as great as it looks on Mike Green, it was a really weird rep by the lineman. Like,
yeah,
when contact was made, I don't think the tackle had either foot on the ground.
Yeah, he's on his heels immediately. Like he's expecting a swim or a spin there. I think he was just trying to anticipate some shiftiness from a guy that he knew had more agility than him. And Mike Green outwitted him,
punched him. Yeah,
reverse psychology, and said, "You're expecting me to do something fancy. I'm going to run through you," and he did.
It was wild. It was like he was on roller skates, and it was the easiest pushover Mike Green's ever had. So I like Mike Green. So I guess
I have one more note, by the way, not on Green. If I want to talk about the other standout guy, Shamar Stewart, because this is a conversation we're going to have about Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton, his teammate at A&M, who was supposed to be there, ended up. He may have been one of the ones that got sick and wasn't able to practice. Regardless, those guys are at 18 and 23 on the consensus mock board. Scorton is expected to be the higher drafted of the two, but they're very close. They both are fantastic athletes. They're going to measure great. They're going to test great. They, from what I hear, are a good interview, good teammates, good players. Everything about them checks out as a prospect, as a mid to late first round guy. What's weird, and this is something that Sam and I were talking about last night in the car. It's something that we're going to have to do. I think I might do an article on it to go back in time and see if there are examples of this working out in the past. Their production was non-existent last year. Right. I think Shamar, if off the top of my head, I think Shamar Stewart had 1.5 sacks. Nick Scorton had 4 sacks on the year. Their pressure numbers, I don't know off the top of my head, but they were very similarly low. Their QB hits were low. Their hurries were low. And I know that, I've talked to some people that have a better understanding of the A&M defense than I do. And it was weird. And they were like having these guys, the edge players, like drop into coverage a bunch and do a bunch of things that weren't rushing the quarterback. And so like, there's some ways to explain that away, but we're going to have to wrestle with the fact that everything about them from an NFL potential standpoint on paper seems awesome. But in college, the very basic fundamental rule of be good in college if you want me to think you're going to be good in the NFL, it does apply to these two guys. And so maybe, it makes me want to go do a deep dive and say, like, how many first rounders in history that had really poor production profiles ended up being good NFL players? I don't know, but it's food for thought.
Yeah. And like being productive in college doesn't mean you're going to be good in the NFL, but not being productive in college rarely means you're going to work out in the NFL.
It feels that way, right? And we know that's the case for one position. There's other one position. Kicker?
Tight end.
Oh, okay. And kicker, I would argue, but yes, kicker's weird. Everybody knows that.
But tight end's also weird. I think that's a little bit changing.
Yeah, because like George Kittle, I think he had 75 catches in 4 full years at Iowa.
Like and then go look at Jason Witten's numbers at Tennessee. Now that was like a long time ago. That was 20 plus years ago. But it's a very strange position when it comes to production volume in college to the NFL, where now it's like one of the most dynamic, weaponized positions overall. All right, let's ask this question, because I'm really curious about this and some of the things that you said throughout your analysis.
Followers too, by the way, at Edge that I want to talk about just briefly.
We will. Okay, we'll talk about some followers after we ask this from the audience here. What position should the Titans draft in the second round? What position?
What are the options here? What are we considering the options?
I mean, I don't know. I have my answers, but
okay,
we'll see. Like, I kind of want to leave it open. Like, what position group should they target in the second round? I see a lot of answers are already coming in here. Edge, and then just Jack Sawyer.
Specifically Jack. Okay.
Yeah, edge or right tackle. Now we are seeing some wide receivers coming in here from some others. Wide receiver. Sean King's a wide receiver. Now there's so many comments that are just jumping up here. I'm having a hard time getting through them. But edge, wide receiver, offensive line / right tackle. And MB says, Austin, given they draft what in the first? Well, that's the caveat to the question. Like, I don't know. That's based on your opinion too. I'm allowing you guys to have more creative control over how you answer the question here. So, Easton, do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. I am going to make a statement that I feel like the Titans, that I'm going to create a Titans draft rule here. Easton, list off those edge players and their consensus big board spots that you kind of went through just a few minutes ago. After Abdul Carter.
So after Abdul,
yeah,
we have 10 guys.
Just the numbers. I don't need the names, just the
right,
numbers.
10 guys between 10 and 46. So you got 10, 13, 16, 18, 23, 29, 38, 42, 43, 46.
Okay. The Titans pick 135 and 101. It's a big gap.
Yep.
The Titans must come away with an edge rusher within those first two picks.
I think you are right. Yes.
If you pick Abdul Carter number 1, then you get to go somewhere else at 35. If you don't pick Abdul Carter number 1, then you must draft one of those guys with the 35th overall pick. This team has mostly ignored edge pass rushers in the draft with high currency. Like Harold Landry was a second round pick at like 42, I want to say overall. The last time the Titans have drafted an edge rusher with their first round pick was Derek Morgan in 2010. The time before that, they drafted an edge rusher in the first round was Javon Curse in 1999. So they've gone 11 years and now freaking 15 years for in between drafting edge rushers in the first round. Now 35 is not a first round pick, but it's close. And if you're going to pick somebody else number 1, then you got to get one of those guys because that's a good group of players, 10 guys between 10 and 46 that you can find somebody that's on the board at 35 before there's a drop off with some edge guys before you're back on the clock at 101. So the rule is for the Titans that I am creating right now is they must draft at least one edge rusher in round 1 or 2. One of those two picks has to be an edge rusher.
So I think you're all over it, and this is all we're playing from we're playing within the world in which they really only have 2 picks in the top 100, right? Because I do think the math on all of this changes when we get further down the line and maybe see some trade potential crop up. Because I generally agree with you that in the first and second round they've got to come away with edge help unless they make some. Really big edge acquisition in free agency, which there kind of isn't, or some big edge trade, which there rarely is ever. So it feels that way 100%. The thing about the second overall pick to me, and people love Jack Sawyer in the comments.
Second round pick.
Yes, sorry, I'm seeing so much Jack Sawyer. I'm gonna pull up that video later because it's so good. You need to see it. What they do at the second pick is entirely dictated by what they do at 1. Like we understand this. If they go quarterback, it's one thing. If they go edge, it's one thing. If they, go cornerback, wide receiver, and Travis Hunter, that obviously changes the math. I would be willing to bet significant money at this point that if they stick at 1, which is not a certainty, if they stick at 1, they will be taking a quarterback or an edge, and by edge I mean Abdul Carter, right? That's what it feels like to me. As much as
they pick at 1, there are 3 players that they would be picking from.
Yeah, I mean, I have to include Travis Hunter in the realm of possibility just because he is so good at what he does, but I would be surprised by that just because of the desperate need at edge and the desperate need at quarterback as compared to a guy that, and it maybe it really depends on how you feel Travis Hunter will best translate in terms of cornerback versus receiver. To me, I think God built that boy to play cornerback. I think that he can play either at a really high level. And if he played for the Titans, they would play him at receiver more than cornerback because of the need there. I mean, are you running him? Are you getting him snapped over Jarvis and snapped over Jarius Sneed and these guys, Sneed and Awuzie and Roger McCreary? Like, he's gonna have to work his way up that ladder. Whereas at receiver, like, brother, you can play day 1. We need you out there. So, and also I think he'll moonlight in the NFL no matter what he primaries. I think that he will be doing a little bit of both just because he is so talented at those things. And so I just don't know. It then becomes a weird thing where it's like, okay, so if he's a full-time receiver, but he plays some cornerback and he's like one of your best cornerbacks in the team, and that you create for yourself as a team a lot of issues narratively where it's like, well, biggest third down of the game and Travis is not out there. And they're like, well, it's because we have him a snap count. You only know certain packages. And it's this whole headache, right?
It's all an internal conflict that, is a good problem to have, but still a problem.
So bottom line, I think that's the reality. Now, do I think that means if they don't take Carter, they're for sure taking edge at 2? I don't know, because while I agree with you, it feels like they have to. We're about to talk about, there are some really good offensive tackle options that are going to be right in that range and are going to be pushed down by, and I was talking to some Titans brass about this week down there. It is, in a roundabout way, kind of a good thing for the Titans that this draft class at the top is so heavy on D linemen. I think Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 came out. I think 15 of the top 50 are defensive linemen. There are some studs in this group, and they're going to go.
You're talking about like not edge guys, like D line,
interior D linemen, and they're all there's a lot of good edge too. So edge and D line is a big chunk. It feels like half of the top 50 players in this class.
Literally 25 maybe.
Yeah, and so because the Titans, like, maybe the number one position of not need for the Titans is defensive line, just because they have Jeffrey Simmons and Devondre Sweat. They need guys there, but are they going to pick one of these guys in the top 2 rounds at defensive tackle? That seems like that's something they wouldn't do, right?
That would be crazy.
So if a bunch of those guys go in the first round because they're the best talents, and defensive tackle is an increasingly premium position in the NFL, and a lot of teams do need that interior pass rush that they're going to offer, I think it's likely to push down a handful of these fringe first round tackle types that we're going to talk about in a minute, who in other years would probably go in the late teens and 20s and 30s. And, it'd be the guys that the Cowboys and the Chiefs are picking up every year, where it's like, oh, they got tackle 6, and I wonder if that guy will pan out. I think that it might push those guys into day 2 and into range for the Titans, which is good news, because if they can lock down that right tackle position, whoever they do have playing at quarterback, whether it's the first round pick or a trade for somebody that's probably older and more brittle and needs protecting, that is just as big a deal to me as their need for edge rush help. The only argument against it really is I think it will be easier in free agency to address right tackle than it will be to address edge. It's not easy to address tackle in free agency, but it's darn near impossible to do it at edge unless you just get aside from a trade, like, you don't ever see big name edge players just available. It's like receiver, but worse than that. It's such a premium. You don't see great left tackles out there on the market. You don't see great edge rushers on the market. Andrew Van Ginkel was like the closest thing to a, star that somebody signed in free agency. And that was more of a fluke than it was a predictable thing. So I don't know. I think O-line is just as likely to be a second round pick. What I think is the most likely outcome is they address right tackle in free agency somehow. It's not perfect. We're not sure about it, but there's a guy there that's not named NPF or John Ojukwu,
or Jalen Duncan,
or
have to throw out all those just to make sure.
Any of the flavors of the month. Somebody not named those guys will be in there. Leroy Watson will be in there at right tackle.
They will sign a player to play right tackle who did not start a game for them at right tackle last year.
Correct. New on the payroll. And will not feel great about it, but it will inform our opinion of what they have to do at 2, which is go after an edge player. Now, we're also going to talk about receivers in a minute, and there's going to be good receivers at 2. Ultimately, what they want what they want to do is they really want to find the third pick in the top 100, because they've got too many positions they want to address. Yeah. So that's going to happen, I think.
I just put up a YouTube poll. What position should the Titans take in the second round if a QB goes number 1? I gave 4 options: edge, offensive tackle, wide receiver, and D-line. I'll update that poll. It's very young and new poll. But we'll talk more about the other options on this. Easton, was your official answer O-line in the second round? What was it? You said a lot of words.
I know. I just kind of stream of consciousnessed it. My official answer was it's most likely they'd go edge.
Okay. So you're going to go edge on that. All right. So
but don't sleep on tackle. But don't sleep on tackle.
All right. First, Farm Bureau Health Plans. That's where you should turn for any of your health coverage needs. FBHP.com/ATOZ. is where you should go to get that process started. The first of the month is tomorrow. Crazy enough, but we're already a full month into 2025. And if you and your family, whatever your situation is, you need to upgrade your health coverage, you can do that each and every first of the month by going through the process at Farm Bureau Health Plans. FBHP.com/ATOZ is where to get started. Whether you are, look out there by yourself, entrepreneur, independent contractor without any coverage, or you're on the government marketplace looking for better, you can get better at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Or whatever. Maybe it's your growing young family. Maybe you're empty nested with you and your spouse. You need that next level of coverage. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get started. FBHP.com/ATOZ.
We're also brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Sign up today using our bonus code ATOZ Sports to get up to $1,500 back if your first bet does not cash. That's BetMGM. Download the app today, the sportsbook born in Vegas.
All right, so I just put up the YouTube poll. What position should the Titans take in the second round if a quarterback goes number one between edge, offensive tackle, wide receiver, and D-line? Easton, your official answer after talking through it for 5 to 10 minutes was edge. My rule,
but I'm not as strong as you. It sounds like you think they have to.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Yes, they do. They have to. Because what's an edge player going to do at 101?
What do you mean?
Like, who is an edge they're going to draft at 101 that's going to be able to help them make an impact? Like, can you get
what do you mean? What are you asking?
101, 101.
Oh, I'm hearing 1.1 at 101. So, okay. Like, I think that's a little reductive. I do, because this is a deep edge group. Is it going to be a day one impact starter? Less likely, for sure.
What are they? They're going to need a day one impact starter at edge.
Yes, but they also need a day one impact tackle. Like, they need that bad.
Again,
find one somewhere.
I think they're more likely to spend like offensive tackle or offensive line. The snap charts come out every Monday, right? Mm-hmm. These guys played X percentage of the snaps on offense and defense. The offensive line, the quarterback, play 100% of the snaps when that's the ideal, right? And then maybe corners and maybe a safety. Those positions are the only ones that have a chance to play 100% of the snaps.
Mm-hmm.
An edge player is going to be rotating regardless. I think you need a right tackle that you want to go out there and play 100% of the snaps week in and week out, and I'm not going to rely on a rookie to do that again. I want a veteran right tackle to go play 100% of the snaps. And then I'll draft a kid at 35 overall to play edge, knowing that he's going to play like 75% of the snaps and go find a value edge that's a veteran behind him to pick up the other 25%.
Well, we're going to spend the next couple of weeks diving into, the free agent opportunities out there. And I think that will go a long way in informing how we feel about this.
Yes, for sure. But I think they need youth at edge. They need energy in.
They need juice. That's fair. They need juice.
Absolutely. They need juice at edge, and at 35, the first or second round is where they're going to get it this year.
Hey, speaking of juice, I went and found it. Listen to this.
Founding goal at the 3. Power formation. Warren looking, and it's intercepted at the goal line. Unbelievable! Wow, Jack Sawyer. The hero, Captain Jack.
Jack Sawyer, the hero, Captain Jack. It's so good. It's the best call of all time.
Gus Johnson.
It's like he inhaled dust off a beignet right before he called it. It sounds like he's choking. Anyways,
yeah,
Gus Johnson. I just had to show that.
Every Gus Johnson never gets a blowout. It never happens. Like there's always a close game. Gus Johnson also, the guy who was on the call when Chris Johnson had a big touchdown run and said he's got running from the cop speed,
which is a crazy. You can't say that anymore.
Like, who came up? Where did you even get that from? Anyway, Gus Johnson is the best.
The man.
Going on. So again, back to my thought. Jack Sawyer got juice. He's got juice, right? A lot of these guys got juice at 35 overall. If you don't pick Abdul Carter in the first round, you have to get an edge player in the second round. You have to.
Okay. All right. Well, let me real quick before we move off the edge, just very briefly mention two guys that were followers for me. who are in that top 10, that group of top 11 guys outside of Abdul Carter, who left a lot to be desired to me. And, we talked about the pair of A&M edges as guys that I am intrigued by. How about the pair of Ole Miss edge players? Princely Umamule. Do you know how to say this guy's name?
Nope.
Okay, Princely I will learn how to say his name. Uman Mielen. That's probably not correct, but out of Mississippi. And then Jared Ivey, who I was less disappointed by Ivy because I did see some good things from him, but neither of them had the week that I was hoping them to have. And they both are, consensus board, Princely at 42, Jared at 63. They're guys that are likely to be on the board for the Titans for them to choose from. I want to go back and watch their tape. Maybe they just had kind of a weird week, but not a great one for them down in Mobile.
Okay.
So if we want to talk about the other positions, we can do
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into the other positions because I'm done with my edge spiel. They just got to get one in the top 2 rounds. If they don't, then they,
let's knock out tackle real quick because this is very brief. We're not going to do a lot of tackle eval. I just want to put some names on people's radar. And again, we're going to focus on risers because for them to have been fallers, that people would have needed to know who they were beforehand and have a high opinion of them. And I don't think a lot of people have a great understanding of the tackles yet. So just these are some guys that I think are definitely keep on your radar guys at tackle, or excuse me, at O-line. Because one of these guys, not a tackle probably, but he was the best lineman of the week. So I'll just start there. Gray Zabel, interior offensive lineman, probably. Now he did out of North Dakota State University, by the way, small school guy. He was the talk of all 3 days. I mean, he was on a Linsanity run the first 2 days in particular. I'm not sure he lost a rep. He caught so we got some video here, and this is I think a cut up of day 1 and day 2 reps. He was fantastic, and they had him playing at all 5 positions, primarily at guard and at center. And I think that he's somebody that somebody on the field compared him to Graham Barton to me. He feels very Graham Barton-esque in the way that he is pro ready. He's polished. He's versatile. He's somebody that a lot like Graham Barton last year, Ravenwood prospect, by the way, shout out Brentwood area. A Duke player that is now with the Bucks. I think he's a Buccaneer.
Bucks.
He was like a second, third round, day 2 prospect at this point last year. And then by April, he was a surefire first round pick and ended up going there and was a day 1 starter and has been really good in the NFL so far. I had an NFL professional compare him to that guy. And I think that Gray Zabel will be somebody that may sneak into the first round despite not having that tackle upside necessarily. Man, he looks really good. And he was the guy that I heard many people on the field saying best week of anybody was Gray Zabel. So keep an eye on him because
good hands,
he's available.
Right? Like his hands are good.
Yeah, I mean, his technique is about as pro ready as you get for a college player, which, I had an article early this year rather, about what pro ready looks like at the line position, which it's just so hard from a technique standpoint to be anywhere close to NFL ready as a lineman, which is why you see guys struggle so much. He's advanced in his technique. And again, at multiple positions. So the only reason I bring him up, while the Titans don't need a tackle or don't need an interior lineman nearly as bad as they need a tackle. Now they can use all the help they can get. If he's there somehow at 35, he may be the number 1 overall player on their board at any position because I think that they are going to really like him. So just keep an eye on him. Now, some actual tackles to talk about. A 3-pack here of guys that caught actually a 4-pack of guys that caught my eye this week. And we'll start with somebody mentioned this in the chat earlier. I meant to star it. Ariante Ersuri, I think is how you say his name. Offensive tackle out of Minnesota. Big fella. Yeah, there. Tristan's all over it. And I'm butchering that name. I'll get it fixed later. He was the most tackle-looking guy out there. Just looks like, he's got the Minnesota helmet on. He looks like a lumberjack. He's like really fitting the vibe. He's somebody that on the consensus board is at 32. So he's going to be right in that range for potentially being there at 35 for the Titans. Already mentioned Josh Connerly, who we showed you his worst rep of the week. He had many, many reps way better than that. And that was against the best edge that was there. So don't let that be how you are coloring in your mind what Josh Connerly Jr. is, the tackle out of Oregon. He's actually above Ursary on the consensus board at 29. He'll probably be a first rounder. But again, if some of these defensive tackle and edge players push the the offensive tackles down the board and he's there at 35, he could very well be the top player on the Titans board. Now, he's a smaller, more athletic type of tackle, not the big menace of a man that an Ursary was. And I think that when we consider these tackle options, we need to keep in mind that Bill Callahan has a type, right? He wants a guy who has an industrial sized anchor. He's usually on the bigger side. I mean, this is the guy that was working with his kind of guy is 300-pounder DeWand Jones, 300-pounder JC Latham. Give me the big fellas who are athletic for their size, not necessarily athletic for the position. So I don't know if necessarily Josh Connerly will be a great fit. And then the other two, Jonas Savayanaya, the tackle out of Arizona, he is at 41 on the big board. He's somebody that I wrote about in our group draft piece at the beginning of the week. If you want to hear some thoughts on that, you can go and read that article where we picked, we did a mock draft just of players from the Senior Bowl where we built rosters that way. And I liked what he did a lot this week. He's at 41 on the consensus board. And then Armand Membu, who I'm not quite sure how to say his name either, tackle out of Missouri at 34. So that four pack of guys, Ursary, Connerly, Membu, Savayanaya, they're all at 29, 32, 34, 41 on the consensus board. They all had good weeks. I've been told they have good tape. I'm going to watch that tape, but I think that those guys are all firmly in the discussion with the Titans at 35.
It's tough that you wish they had 2 picks at 35, right?
Well, yeah, or third pick would be nice.
I was like, can you take 2 guys at 35? Because there's a lot of good players. I want to ask you a question here too, because those are good tackles. We've already talked a lot about the edge guys. Is there a wide receiver that could be on the board and in play at 35 overall? We'll do that. But real quick, nobody trashed Tennessee.com. That's what T-Dot's out there trying to do. They're trying to educate us all on how to keep our roadways clean, how to clean up all that litter that we've got out there, because we all have bad habits. I've got bad habits. You guys have bad habits. Hopefully one of them is not accidentally littering to keep our state beautiful. We can do that by helping out T-Dot and all the efforts they have by visiting their campaign, their website, nobodytrashestennessee.com.
We are also brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Sign up today using our bonus code, which I will throw on the board in a moment when I find it. Right here, ATOZ Sports, right there for you. BetMGM, ATOZ Sports, when you sign up to get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets over there at the sportsbook born in Vegas.
All right, Easton. You've given a lot of good players names at edge and offensive tackle who could be available at 35. Let's make it even more complicated. What wide receivers could be available at 35 overall? Because I want to update the poll real quick. Because we asked this question on the YouTube poll. And now we've got at least 15 minutes of data. What position should the Titans take in the second round if a quarterback goes number 1? Edge 56%, tackle 31%, wide receiver 13%. D-line, for what it's worth, 0 votes.
Okay. Well, that's, what people understand what's going on here. So that's good.
So who are some wide receivers that could legitimately be an option at 35? If you're sitting there at 35 on the clock and you've got like an edge, a tackle, and a wideout all on the board, that's like a peanut shell, helmet game of like which one do you want to look under and which one do you want to go after there for the Titans. So wide receivers at 35, what you got?
Yeah, a part of the reason why I think they are definitely way less likely to take receiver at 35 is because of the need, right? And I think edge and tackle are firmly more important by a large margin than receiver for this team. But the other part of it is that it's kind of a weird spot for receiver, it seems. We know who the first round guys are going to be, right? We know Tet, McMillan, Luther Burden, and Emeka Egbuka are all going to probably be first round guys. And then after that, you have kind of a gap. It's not nearly as traffic jammy as the edge position is. Matthew Golden is receiver 4 on the consensus big board at 35, or excuse me, at 34. I just have a hard time thinking. I'm hearing such good things about him out of Texas, by the way. Matthew Golden out of Texas. If you don't know who he is, you certainly saw him in the playoff doing some big things for them. I have a hard time believing he's going to be there at 35. I'm just hearing so many good things about him. And if he's really tackle 4, receiver 4, I wouldn't be surprised if he sneaks into the first round. Now, if he's there,
when's the last time only 4 receivers have gone the first round?
Yeah, I know. I'd have to go back and look, but it feels like not recently. So, if he's there, they'll probably have to think about it. The other guy, sort of in that range, Alec Oyumanor out of Stanford, 49 overall on the big board. He was supposed to be down there this week, was one of the opt-outs. Unfortunately, would have liked to have gotten to see him in Mobile. Maybe you consider him. But then, the next couple picks are on the big board again. And this is it's January, right? It is subject to change. But 50, 53, 68, 74, 76, 82. And the guys that we did see down there are all in that third round range that the Titans would be picking in if they had the pick. And that's Xavier Restrepo at 74, Jaden Higgins at 76, Jalen Royals at 82, Tez Johnson at 85. These are the guys that we have some clips of if we want to show them, but they were the standouts for me at the Senior Bowl. And just a quick thought on them. Xavier Restrepo is expected. He's a University of Miami player. You saw him play a lot with Cam Ward. We talked to him, Sam and I did, about his experience with Cam Ward, which I think Sam has an article out on if you want to go read that.
Mm-hmm.
He had a fine week. These guys are all kind of similar flavors of the same ice cream in the sense that they are not really do-it-all receivers. These are smaller, speedier guys. That was the theme of the week at wide receiver. And so like Restrepo, 5'9", 202. Jaden Higgins, who's right behind him on the big board, receiver out of Ohio State, who had a big week. He was the biggest of the group. He was the outlier.
Ohio State.
Excuse me. What did I say? Whatever I said.
Ohio.
Oh, yeah. It's dyslexia this morning. Iowa State, he was the outlier in terms of size at 6'4", 217. So if the Titans were somehow in the third round again and traded and needed a big body guy, he's their guy. But then like Tez Johnson, 5'10", 156. Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech was a big name this week. 5'10", 196. Jalen Noel was maybe the biggest of the potential day 3 guys that is probably going to move himself up into day 2. The other Iowa State kid. I did appreciate watching the Iowa State guys because between Higgins and Noel, it was always very easy to tell who you were watching because one of them is 6'4", 217. The other one is 5'10", 200. So very different looking guys. Jalen Royals, who I know that's Sam's boy out of Utah State. Yep. He's at 79 on the consensus board, 6 foot, 205. The only one that is really like Restrepo is fine. I like Royals and Noel better than him just because they feel like the same player, but the other two feel more versatile than Restrepo does to me. I wasn't crazy about Restrepo. He just didn't, I don't know. He just didn't really do it for me. Maybe the tape will change my mind. The one guy I want to bring up to maybe talk about just a little bit is Tez Johnson out of Oregon, because he was probably the most productive receiver out there this week. Like he was unguardable at times. He was getting open consistently. And you're going to see some of it here on the screen. Like he was winning against every receiver, even when the passes are god awful like that. He was winning and getting open. But he's a $156, right? Like he weighs 165 soaking wet. Does that work in the NFL? We've seen, everybody and their brother says, but Tank Dell. He's the next Tank Dell. Where he goes is going to be so important because he is going to have to go to a team that has an innovative offensive coordinator or play caller who knows how to use him, to hide him, to, let him avoid contact at the line of scrimmage, to get him on, cheat motions, to do these things, to have him run a route out of the backfield even. Because there's some of these clips. There was one of his biggest highlights of the week was like a 5-yard in breaker across the middle of the field route, and he won, and it was great. But everybody in the stadium that I was sitting there with was like, if he does that in a real NFL game, he's going to see heaven. Like this guy's going to this guy's
hospital
going to,
ball.
He's going to get his block knocked off.
All right,
you can't do that with this guy.
I want to play a game.
Okay.
So Shannon says, wasn't Tyreek undersized? Like there's a difference in undersized and underweight. Like you could, we brought up Steve Smith Sr. yesterday. Somebody did in the chat. Steve Smith was like 195, 200 pounds. Like that was a running back. Like Golden Tate, short, thick running back, powerful, this kind of stuff. Like
Tyreek's 5'10", 190.
Yeah, but he's had NFL weight and he's gotten more mature. Like you do fill out a little bit in your 20s.
Yeah, but we're talking about 190 versus 156. We're talking about
big
45 pounds.
Huge difference. 35 pounds.
35 pounds.
So, which is massive, huge, big difference. I want to ask this question to the guys in the chat. How old were you when you weighed 157? How old were you when you last weighed 157? Now,
Right.
We all come in different shapes and sizes.
No judgment here. We're not
no,
NFL
I'm
players,
just curious because
you know.
I know how old I was. I think I just maybe 16, maybe 15.
Oh, it was earlier for me. Yeah, I think 8th grade. Like, I don't think I ever.
You're a big boy. You're a big boy.
I don't think I was ever. Yeah. Oh, no, I was at my like chubbiest freshman year of high school for sure, and then I leaned out as like junior senior year. So like I don't think I ever saw a 1.5 on the scale when I was in high school. Like in high school, when I got the leanest, when I was like at my peak high school boy metabolism, can eat anything, doesn't matter, was junior year, and I got down to like 168.
Yeah.
I don't think I physiologically could touch 156 if I tried. Like, unless you put me in a torture chamber, like if you sent me to Guantanamo and just didn't feed me, I'd eventually hit 156. But frankly, I might die before I get to 156.
Yeah.
Might just perish.
I did all my growing when I was 16 or 17 because I went from like 150 something as like a 15-year-old to like 185 my senior year of high school.
Like, the point here is usually you hit puberty.
Right.
You never see 150 again.
And Tez Johnson's 157. Like, there are so many. Like, he is small. He is light for a high school recruit.
I know. I was talking to Sam about this at the stadium yesterday. I'm so excited for that. He's going to be top billing at the combine in a month of the guys who are fake fat, who like, we can't wait to see what they weigh in at. Bryce Young was most recently the guy who he showed up. You looked at him. He looked like he had been pounding waters and empty carbs. Like, the guy looked like a fat suit version of himself when he got to the combine, just bloated like crazy. Steps up on the scale, 204. Everybody's like, wow, Bryce got big. And then at his pro day 2 weeks later, he'd lost all of that water weight. He was back down to 185 or whatever he actually was.
A massive number 1, right? Just a
right.
big old P.
Exactly. Like, he was retaining everything. That I'm sure he had a big fat breakfast that morning, like pancakes to just weigh the stomach down. So Tez Johnson, I think his goal number is probably going to be, if he can get up on that scale and see a 1.7 at the beginning of the number, if he can get to 170 with just fake weight, then it's going to be like, oh, look, see, Tez can get bigger. And everyone knows if you weigh 156 in real life as an NFL athlete, that's because you can't put on weight. Nobody is intentionally 156. Nobody.
Kevontae Turpin, 158 is what he's listed at.
But there's a reason why he's a bad receiver. Like, guys,
he's an awesome return guy. That's it.
When they have to play him at receiver, things go badly.
Mm-hmm. And you're not drafting Tez Johnson to be a returner.
No. Also, Kevontae Turpin was plucked out of the UFL. This is a guy that's currently projected to go in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. What are we talking about? Like, would I like Tez Johnson as an experiment in the 6th round? Heck yeah. Probably even the 5th round, for sure. At 85 overall, I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy.
100%. So it's light, man. So, man, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with the Titans.
But the only reason we're actually talking about it is because he's good at football. Like, weight aside, he's a good football player. So I don't know. Yeah. He needs to end up like with a Mike McDaniel, a Sean McVay. If he goes to play for some dinosaur of an offense, I
just want to put this out on the record. Ladies, I did not. I specifically said, guys, when's the last time you were 157? Yeah. I just want to put that on the record. Let's get into some super chats before we wrap this thing up with some good news. King VC says, lock in, like the show, hit that like button. Let me do a little refresh here because we were really, really close to 20,000 subs right before we started the show. Let me see where we're at now. Let me do a little refresh here on the show. Come on now, internet. Don't fail me in live video time. We are 5 subs away. 5 from
who wants to be the 20,000th? It could be you right now.
19,995. We are 5 away from 20K right there. Major Key says, Brian Callahan was a big part of drafting Burrow number 1. Now he's a head coach and can relive that moment drafting Shedeur, whose comp is Burrow. Cleveland had the number 1 back in 2017 and drafted Myles Garrett over Mahomes and only been in the playoffs twice. Now,
Myles Garrett was
generational
in my opinion, a generational prospect at the position. You You could not draft Mahomes at 1 in that draft. Like this is
You would have been
peak revisionist history. You couldn't do it. In
I mean,
fact, when they did draft Mahomes at what, 8, the Chiefs drafted him
10.
at like 10. All the draft grades on USA Today the next day were like C-.
because Deshaun Watson was still there. Like
Yeah.
when the Chiefs move up from 27 to 10, everybody's like, it's Deshaun Watson. He just, national champion, Clemson quarterback, Deshaun Watson.
Right.
Nope. Patrick Mahomes. Everybody's like, whoa. And then the Texans followed suit and moved up at 12 to get Watson. So Andre said,
sorry, go ahead.
Andre says, bottom line, have to get a third rounder. Nothing but raccoon's ass at free agent right tackle. Also not trading out of 1 the past 3 without a 26, 27, not doing it. So, past 3, I see what you're saying. Beyond the third pick. I got you. So, yeah, I mean, not having a third round pick feels like it hurts quite a bit. There's a massive gap, 35 to 101, but you have L'Jarius Sneed. And right now, that means nothing to you because you never really saw him play or have a positive impact. But that's a conversation for a different day. And then Big Ten Jeff jumps in here, says, Josh Simmons at left tackle, Latham to right tackle. I don't know who Josh Simmons is, Easton, at this point.
You don't know who he is?
I don't know who Josh Simmons is.
I know of him. I know nothing about him. So I will investigate.
Yep, sounds good. All right,
yeah.
let's
he plays tackle in American football. That is what I know about Josh Simmons.
Probably for Ohio State, because Big Ten Jeff said. Okay, here we go. Ain't that good news? If you have good news, drop it in the chat. Here we go. Shout out to our friends at Wilson County Hyundai, wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Make them a part of your new car buying process. Seaman Lebanon, we're online, wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Good news. This is the first time we've had an end of show topic since Monday when I won the age game, by the way.
Did you? Who'd you get?
I predicted Lil Wayne's age of 42.
Okay. Well done. Is that your second win of all time? Third?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I don't remember who I first got correctly. I don't remember.
It was more that you got them than it was who they were.
Yeah, I'm on the board twice, baby. That's all that matters to me. All right. Good news. If you have good news, hit us up with your good news.
By the way, we're now 2 subscribers away from 20,000.
Ooh,
so
nice.
Who wants to be the lucky 20,000th?
There you go. Demetrius says, good news, listening to the new The Weeknd album.
This is good news for telling me, Demetrius. I now know to go listen to that.
Nice. Jeff says, nope. I don't know. We'll have to ask Demetrius on Monday. Good news. Back into the 80s in Florida after snow last week. I mean, it's like going to be 60 something today in Nashville.
I know. We had gorgeous weather in Mobile, but if it had been 1 week earlier, it would have been a nightmare of a week.
American Toff, speaking of nightmare, finally getting asbestos and mold removed from the attic and garage, $4,000, but glad it's finally getting done.
Holy cow. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's something.
You don't want mesothelioma.
Mm-hmm. Denise, good news. Finally talking football players. Damn straight. Rashid, good news. Hit all the parlays this past Sunday. Congratulations. Hey, Ashley, good news. It's Ashley's birthday. Happy birthday to
Happy birthday, Ashley.
All right. More good news. I get to leave Wisconsin cold next week for a work trip in California and found a place to stay near Green Bay for the draft. How about this? A to Z also. Jake and Zach are going to the draft in Green Bay.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Airbnbs in Green Bay next to Lambeau. Pricey.
Well, I'm wondering if does the city even have the infrastructure to host a draft? I guess they do, but
not really.
Okay, not really.
So I know all about Lambeau. So if you're a Nashvilleian, Lambeau Field is basically in the middle of Belmead.
In terms of how relative it is to the city.
No, the neighborhood. It's it's just in the middle of a subdivision of homes.
Because on Sunday Night Football, they'll always have that cut of people sitting out of their home right next to the stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally in the middle. If you dropped a stadium in the middle of Creve Hall neighborhood, that's what it would look like. In ranch style homes, not not homes that have been lived there for 30 years plus.
Very suburban. Yes.
Yeah. It's just strange. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle that. Because Yeah.
If you're one of those homeowners, I mean, you have the opportunity to make.
Oh,
pretty
that's what they
penny.
do. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like Packers players are like rent homes for the season and like room together.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's like college. It's like 4 players are like, hey, we'll rent out this 4-bedroom, and they just
Such a
live together.
unique NFL
And then they go
experience.
home. Then they leave in the offseason. It's pretty wild. All right, good news. Bobby Lee has my good news. The Pat Salmon branded WNBA team coming to Tennessee proposed. So that was my good news. I just think it's badass. Look, it is a bid that has been put in for WNBA expansion for Nashville called the Tennessee Summit. I think it is the only name that could be.
It's an all-time name. It's perfect.
The logo is also 10 out of 10. It looks phenomenal. And they've got so much strong backing with Bill and Chrissy Haslam. That's the owner that you need. Like any Major League Baseball thing that Nashville's trying to get, there's no billionaire with a B owner driving this thing.
Mm-hmm. This
does, because it's got Bill and Chrissy Haslam, also Candace Parker, who is just a badass in her own right, Peyton Manning, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, and many others. I feel like this is going to happen, and I'm pumped about it because I just think it's bad. I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s when the Lady Vols are winning national championships. Watched a lot of those games as a kid. Covered a little bit of Pat Summitt when I was a college reporter at Tennessee, and my senior year was her last year. And I graduated with Tyler Summitt. We were in the same College of Communications, same year. Stanley Summitt. Names are familiar, so kind of we're in the same flow of the walk across the stage deal. So I think it's pretty badass that the Tennessee Summit is proposed. So hopefully, fingers crossed that it does hit. So
we are now 1 subscriber away. Come on, people. Come on. Let's get to 20. But anyways, it's you're right. It is. Did you know this was happening? It was a very weird notification for me to get while I was down there. I was like, the Nashville's doing
no, I did not know this was happening. There is another potential. I do know that there is an ownership group trying to get a women's national soccer league team to Nashville too. They missed out on this round of expansion. Cincinnati was awarded the team, but they're still trying to do that. So,
all right. Well, my good news is now that we have 20,000 subscribers on A to Z Sports YouTube. So shout out to everybody for subscribing. Very cool. That's an awesome milestone. Here's to 30,000.
Yeah, that's right. So that's your good news. Not even any of the stuff from the Senior Bowl.
I mean, I had an awesome week. So I guess my good news is that it was another fantastic week. I always tell people that going to see the players is awesome, and there's no better base of foundation for learning about the draft and getting to see these players, and it's so valuable. But honestly, the networking, the professional development of these weeks, and the spring break of the NFL of it all, where the camaraderie of people in different markets and making friends that enabled me to do my job better, enable us to have really cool guests on A to Z products, and all of that is made possible by the Senior Bowl and the Combine. So it was a blast, and I can't wait to Senior Bowl is really, it's kind of a warm up for your body for the Combine, because the Combine's about twice as long. The nights are later, the mornings are earlier. You're broken by the end of it, but it's one heck of a ride that's well worth it.
I'm hesitant to even put this on the screen. Any funny stories from the A to Z house of the Senior Bowl? So you don't have to say anything. I just your face says enough. There are funny stories. I heard some of them on y'all's drive back yesterday.
Yeah.
Including Sam's Survivor stardom that has come back to bite him in a very entertaining, hilarious way for everybody but Sam.
Yeah. Yeah. It was best part of my week, worst part of his week.
Which is everything you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes
should we just say
being a D-list celebrity is not a good thing.
Yeah. Sometimes you get a stalker out of nowhere.
Sometimes.
Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
But very funny. Very funny. Great coverage from you guys. I know most of the crew is making their way back today. Shout out to Travis May, our college football and NFL draft managing editor, did a great job organizing and keeping you guys in line. He was like house dad, I guess. If there is a house dad, Travis is the house
Sure.
dad. Combine's coming up in a few weeks. Pumped about that. But that's it for us this week. Make sure that you do subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let's just not stop at 20,000. We can keep on rolling. But also like the show, and we'll catch you guys on a Monday after a long weekend. Easton does have his interview series beginning coming up later today. So keep an eye out for that. Talking Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. We'll catch you guys later on. Appreciate it as always.